Some lives change in a heartbeat. Others change during a 2-minute walk. Ella had always believed she belonged to the second kind. Stable, powerful, untouched by surprises. At 50, she held a senior position in the company, commanding respect, without raising her voice. That morning felt no different from any other. She parked her car farther from the office, as she often did, enjoying the short walk. The street was quiet, almost empty. Her heels clicked rhythmically against the pavement, each step measured, controlled. The office building stood ahead, familiar and reassuring. Then the silence broke. A deep growl cut through the air. Before Ella could react, a large dog burst toward her, fast and aggressive. Its sudden movement froze her in place. Her heart slammed against her ribs. For the first time in years, she felt truly powerless. She stepped back instinctively, her breath trapped somewhere between fear and shock. There was no one else around. No escape route, no time to think. Her confidence dissolved into pure instinct. She braced herself for impact, eyes wide with panic. Suddenly, someone moved between them. A young man caught the dog by its collar, his movements calm, deliberate. There was no fear in him, only focus. From his pocket, he pulled out a biscuit. Holding it up with practiced ease, the dog's aggression faded. Within seconds, the threat disappeared. The dog wagged its tail, as if nothing had happened at all. Ella stood frozen, stunned by how quickly danger had turned harmless. The young man turned toward her, his face young, sharp, composed. Their eyes met. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Ella nodded, still trying to steady her breathing. Gratitude rushed through her, mixed with something unfamiliar. She took a longer look than she intended. Then she straightened her posture, thanked him briefly, and walked toward the office. She didn't turn back. But the image stayed with her. The dog, the calm stranger, and the unsettling feeling that this was not the end of their story, but the beginning of something she did not yet understand. Part 2. The office came alive the way it always did, screens glowing, phones ringing, controlled chaos wrapped in polished professionalism. Ella walked to her cabin with her usual composure, heels steady, shoulders straight. No one could tell that just minutes ago fear had shaken her. She sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and exhaled slowly. Control returned, at least on the surface. Inside, something still stirred. She glanced at the interview schedule. Trainees, fresh faces, young ambition. Normally, she enjoyed these days. Talent was predictable. People followed patterns. But her mind drifted back to the street. To calm eyes and quick hands. She dismissed the thought and called the first candidate. One by one they entered and exited. Polite answers. Memorized confidence. Ella listened, evaluated, decided. Years of authority had sharpened her instincts. Then the door opened again, and the air subtly changed. John stepped inside. He stood tall but relaxed, not trying to impress. His posture was natural, his gaze respectful. Ella felt an unexpected flicker of recognition. She kept her face neutral, professional. He didn't smile unnecessarily. That alone caught her attention. The interview flowed effortlessly. John spoke clearly, intelligently, without arrogance. His answers showed curiosity, adaptability, hunger to learn. Ella asked harder questions than usual. He didn't falter. She found herself leaning forward slightly. Not because she meant to, because she was engaged. When it ended, she closed the file slowly. "You'll hear from us soon," she said. John nodded, thanked her, and stood to leave. At the door, he paused for a fraction of a second. "By the way, thank you for being okay this morning." Their eyes met again. Then he was gone. Ella sat back, unsettled. That was inappropriate, she told herself. Personal moments didn't belong in professional spaces. Still, she couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her chest. She pressed the intercom and made the decision quickly. John was hired. No hesitation. At home that evening, everything looked perfect. The house was spacious, tastefully decorated. Her daughters were grown, busy with their own lives. Her husband Alex arrived late as usual. He kissed her cheek absent-mindedly. "How was work?" he asked, distracted. "Fine," she replied. Dinner passed in polite conversation. Alex talked about a new project, a possible deal. Ella listened, nodded, smiled when required. They had mastered this rhythm over the years. Comfortable, predictable. When night came, silence filled the bedroom. The kind of silence that spoke too loudly. Alex reached for her out of habit. The moment felt mechanical. Ella turned away slightly, pretending to be tired. He didn't insist. He never did. She stared at the ceiling, awake, restless. Her thoughts betrayed her. She remembered how John's voice had sounded. Calm, focused, present. She hated herself for the comparison. Guilt washed over her, sharp and immediate. She rolled onto her side and forced sleep to come. But the emptiness followed her into dreams. The next week unfolded quickly. John blended into the office effortlessly. Colleagues noticed his sharp mind. His dedication. Ella kept her distance, or tried to. She assigned tasks, reviewed work, gave feedback. Strict, professional. Yet her awareness of him never faded. Sometimes she caught him watching her. Not staring, observing. As if he was reading something beneath the surface. It unsettled her more than open desire ever could. She reminded herself of facts, her age, her marriage, her position. This was dangerous territory. One afternoon they were alone in a conference room. A routine discussion stretched longer than expected. John explained an idea, passion lighting his features. Ella interrupted with a correction. He paused, considered, then refined his point. She felt a surge of admiration and fear. When the meeting ended, silence lingered. Neither moved immediately. Ella gathered her papers, avoiding his eyes. "You're doing well," she said finally. "Thank you," he replied. His voice was low, sincere. Something fragile trembled between them. She left abruptly, heart racing. In her cabin, she closed the door and leaned against it. This was crossing lines, even acknowledging it was wrong. She was not this woman. She had built her life carefully. She wouldn't let desire dismantle it. Days turned into weeks. The tension didn't disappear, it deepened. Small interactions carried weight. A glance held too long. A shared silence in the elevator. Ella fought herself constantly. John seemed patient. Then came the moment she couldn't undo. Late evening. Most of the office empty. She walked past his desk without thinking. He looked up, surprised. Their eyes locked. Neither spoke. The space between them collapsed. It happened quickly, quietly. A mistake born from restraint breaking. Ella pulled back first, shocked at herself. John searched her face, conflicted but calm. "This shouldn't have happened," she whispered. He nodded slowly. But nothing felt resolved. She spent the night drowning in guilt. Her reflection felt unfamiliar. She avoided John the next day completely. Meetings reassigned. Tasks delegated. Distance enforced. She told herself this was control. But control felt hollow now. Something had already shifted. John didn't chase her. He respected the distance. That made it harder. Because part of her wanted him to fight. Another part prayed he wouldn't. Ella stood at the edge of a choice she hadn't expected. And the ground beneath her was already cracking. The days after that moment moved slowly, as if time itself had grown cautious. Ella arrived early, left late, and filled every minute with work. She convinced herself that discipline would erase what had happened. Mistakes could be buried under routine. Emotions could be silenced by authority. At least. That was what she told herself each morning. John followed her lead. He kept his distance, focused on his assignments. No glances held too long. No unnecessary conversations. From the outside, everything looked normal. Inside Ella, the quiet felt louder. Then chaos. At home, Alex sensed the shift. Not the reason, just the absence. Ella spoke less, smiled less. She moved through the house like a guest. Alex tried to close the gap with logic. With plans. She responded with politeness. They were drifting. Silently. One evening, Ella stood alone on the balcony. City lights blurred in the distance. She asked herself when dissatisfaction had turned into hunger. When comfort had started feeling like confinement. She hated the question, because the answer terrified her. Back at the office, pressure mounted. A critical project demanded collaboration. John's expertise made him unavoidable. Meetings became inevitable. Ella prepared herself before each one, building walls that felt thinner every time. John noticed everything. During one meeting, their opinions clashed openly. Voices stayed calm, but tension sharpened the air. Others in the room sensed it, unsure why. John defended his position with quiet confidence. Ella challenged him harder than necessary. When the meeting ended, frustration lingered. So did something else. Later that day, John knocked on her door. "May I come in?" he asked. Ella hesitated, then nodded. The door closed behind him. Softly. "I think we need to clear something," he said. His tone wasn't accusing, just honest. Ella folded her arms. Defensive. "There is nothing to clear," she replied. "That was a mistake. It ends there." John studied her face carefully. "I'm fine with that," he said. "But pretending it didn't matter is unfair. To both of us." His words struck deeper than she expected. She turned away, staring at the window. "You don't understand what you're asking," she said quietly. "My life is built on responsibility." John didn't move closer. "I'm not asking for anything," he replied. "I'm just not lying to myself." Silence stretched between them. Ella felt exposed, stripped of her authority. No one spoke to her like this. Not employees. Not even Alex anymore. It unsettled her and drew her in. She dismissed John abruptly. The conversation ended, but the truth remained. That night, she couldn't sleep. John's words replayed relentlessly. She realized she had spent years denying herself honesty. Not just desire, but dissatisfaction. The realization felt dangerous. Admitting it would change everything. She wasn't sure she was ready. The following days tested her resolve. John's success became more visible. Colleagues praised his ideas. Upper management noticed. Ella felt pride and resentment. She hated herself for both. Emotions tangled beyond control. Then came the invitation. A client dinner. Mandatory attendance. Late evening. Formal setting. John was on the list. Ella considered excusing herself, but professionalism won. She chose composure over avoidance. The dinner unfolded smoothly. Laughter, business talk, polite exchanges. Wine loosened the edges of restraint. Ella caught John watching her across the table, not with desire, but with understanding. That was worse, because it made her feel seen. When the evening ended, they exited together. The night air was cool, grounding. They walked in silence for a moment. "This is getting harder," Ella said suddenly. John stopped. She didn't look at him. "Then stop running from it," he replied gently. "And decide what you want." She walked away before he could say more. But the question followed her home. Decide what you want. For the first time in years, Ella realized she had no clear answer. Only fear and desire growing louder by the day. The decision didn't arrive suddenly. It crept in through hesitation, through silence, through nights without sleep. Ella told herself she needed closure, a conversation, a boundary drawn clearly. Anything was better than this constant unrest. When John sent a short message with an address, she stared at the screen far longer than she should have. The hotel lobby was quiet, anonymous. Exactly the kind of place people chose to disappear for an hour. Ella's reflection in the glass doors looked composed, controlled. Inside, her heart beat unevenly. She reminded herself she could still turn back. She didn't. The elevator doors closed softly. John was already there. No small talk. No false comfort, just a calm presence that made resistance feel exhausting. Ella spoke first. Her voice firm but unsteady. "This is wrong." she said. John didn't argue. Then why are you here? He asked simply. The question stripped away every excuse. Ella had no prepared answer. She felt seen in a way that terrified her, not admired. Not chased. Understood. That realization shook her more than desire ever could. She looked away, fighting herself. What followed was not reckless, it was intense, not rushed, but deliberate. John took control with certainty, not force. Ella felt something unfamiliar unfold inside her. Relief. Release. For once, she wasn't leading. She wasn't responsible for anyone else. Afterward, silence settled heavily. Reality returned faster than she expected. Guilt rushed in, sharp and undeniable. Ella stood, gathering herself piece by piece. This ends here, she said firmly. John nodded without protest. Okay, he replied. She left without looking back. The drive home felt longer than usual. Street lights blurred past her windshield. She told herself it was over. A mistake acknowledged, then buried. She would fix this, she always did. But control proved fragile. At the office, John kept his word. He didn't approach her, didn't seek her out. Instead, another woman did. A young colleague laughed too, easily at his jokes. Ella noticed every detail. Jealousy surprised her with its force. It burned sharper than guilt. She hated that part of herself. The possessiveness she had no right to feel. When she saw them together again, something inside her snapped. She intervened without thinking. Stay away from him, Ella told the girl later. Her tone was cold, authoritative. The girl looked confused, then embarrassed. Ella walked away before questions could follow. The power felt hollow, but it fed something darker inside her. She sought John out that evenings, resumed quietly, hidden between schedules and excuses. Each time, Ella promised herself it was the last. Each time she broke that promise, John didn't push for more. That restraint bound her tighter than pressure ever could. She was losing control, and she knew it. At home, Alex tried again. A tentative touch. A concerned question. Ella recoiled, irritation rising fast. You don't see me, she snapped. Confusion crossed his face. He didn't argue. The distance between them widened painfully. That night, Ella lay awake, staring into darkness. She had crossed a line she couldn't erase. Two lives pulling at her from opposite sides. And for the first time, she wasn't sure which one would break first. John began to change without announcing it. Not abruptly, not dramatically, just enough to be noticed. He became quieter in her presence. More distant, more contained. Ella felt the shift immediately. What she had once feared, she now resented. At work, he focused solely on performance. Deadlines met. Ideas delivered cleanly. Praise came from senior management. Ella approved reports with a steady hand. But her chest tightened each time his name was mentioned. She told herself this was relief. It didn't feel like it. The young colleague appeared again. Too close. Too familiar. Ella noticed the way John listened to her. The way he smiled, small, restrained but present. Jealousy rose quietly, then violently. It surprised her with its depth. She had no claim, yet felt threatened. She confronted John late one evening. The office was nearly empty. Are you avoiding me? She asked. John didn't deny it. I'm doing what you asked, he replied calmly. Keeping things clean. The words stung more than she expected. I didn't ask you to disappear, Ella said. Her voice betrayed her frustration. John studied her for a long moment. You asked me not to cross lines, he said, so I stopped standing near them. His restraint felt like rejection, and rejection ignited her pride. Their conversations grew sharper. Professional on the surface, tense underneath. Every disagreement carried history. Every pause carried meaning. Others sensed the friction, but couldn't name it. Ella felt exposed not by scandal, but by loss of control. At home, things finally broke. Alex reached for her again, not out of habit this time, but concern. You're not here, he said quietly. Something inside Ella snapped. You've never really seen me, she replied. Years of resentment spilled out. The argument escalated, Fast. Words turned cruel. Ella said what she had buried for years. That's why this happened, she admitted, shaking. I needed to feel alive. Alex stared at her, stunned. The silence afterward was devastating. Then leave, Alex said finally. Not shouting. Not pleading. Just exhaustion. The words landed heavier than anger ever could. Ella packed that night. Moved into the second house she rarely used. Freedom felt colder than she imagined. She cut off contact with John completely. No messages. No meetings. She told herself distance would reset everything. Days passed in isolation. Work felt mechanical. The house felt empty. Regret crept in slowly. Then one night, alone by the pool, Ella felt the weight of her choices press down. The water reflected city lights, distorted and restless. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply. Footsteps sounded behind her. She turned and froze. John stood there, silent. Ella's breath caught when she saw him. John stood a few steps away, unsure but determined. The quiet between them felt heavier than words. This isn't a good time, she said quickly. You shouldn't be here. Her voice lacked the authority she wanted. John didn't move. I didn't come to cause trouble, he replied. I just needed to see you. The pool water shimmered softly beside them. Ella wrapped her arms around herself. You need to leave, she repeated. John shook his head slowly. Not like this. She turned away, anger and confusion colliding. You don't understand what you're risking, she said. My life is already broken. John stepped closer, stopping at a careful distance. I know, he said quietly. That's why I'm here. The honesty disarmed her. Without another word, John removed his jacket. Ella turned back just as he stepped into the pool. Water splashed, breaking the tension. She stared, shocked by his boldness. This is insane, she whispered. But her body betrayed her stillness. She followed him into the water. The moment was charged. Intimate, inevitable. Not reckless. Emotional. Ella felt the weight she had been carrying loosen. For a brief time, there was no past, no future. Only release from control. Only truth. She had avoided. It felt dangerously right. Footsteps echoed suddenly. A familiar voice cut through the night. Ella. She froze. Alex stood at the edge of the pool. Stunned. The scene explained itself without words. Anger flashed across his face. John clunged out immediately. Alex stepped forward. Fists clenched. The confrontation was swift, raw, inevitable. Years of restraint met youthful defiance. Ella moved between them, panic rising. Stop, she pleaded. This ends now. Alex looked at her like a stranger. Then he turned away, leaving without another word. John stood silently, guilt written across his face. I never meant to destroy anything, he said. Ella felt the weight of that truth. This can't continue, she replied. John nodded, accepting the end. The days that followed were empty. No John, no Alex. Only consequences. Ella functioned. Nothing more. Work continued, but meaning faded. Her reflection looked older, tired. She had lost more than she realized. Then came the knock she didn't expect. Her daughter stood at the door, concerned and gentle. Mama, come home, she said softly. Papa isn't well. Ella's heart tightened painfully. Shame flooded her eyes. And she finally understood what mattered. Ella didn't answer immediately. Her daughter's words echoed. Inside her chest. The confidence she had worn for years finally cracked. She stepped aside and let her daughter in. They sat quietly, the space filled with unspoken regret. Mama, he's really not okay, her daughter said gently. That was all it took. The drive back to the family home felt unreal. Every street carried memories. She had tried to escape. She wondered when leaving had felt easier than staying. As she parked the car, her hands trembled. For the first time in months, she wasn't running toward desire or away from guilt. She was returning to responsibility. Alex looked smaller than she remembered. Tired, pale, older. Seeing him like that broke something inside her. He didn't speak when he saw her. Neither did she. Words felt useless. She moved closer slowly. I'm sorry, Ella said at last. Her voice cracked under the weight of truth. I lost myself. Alex looked at her carefully. There was pain in his eyes, but also familiarity. I know, he said quietly. That hurt the most. Ella broke down then. Years of restraint dissolved into tears. She confessed without excuses. Her loneliness. Her mistakes. Her shame. Alex listened in silence. When she finished, she waited for rejection. Instead, he opened his arms. They held each other without expectation. Not as lovers. Not as strangers. As two people who had failed and survived. Forgiveness didn't arrive instantly, but willingness did, and sometimes, that was enough to begin again. In the weeks that followed, healing was slow. Counseling replaced arguments. Honesty replaced routine. Ella learned to listen instead of command. Alex learned to see beyond his work. Their relationship changed, not perfect, but real. At the office, Ella focused on rebuilding trust. She kept her distance from John completely. No private conversations. No emotional shortcuts. She chose clarity over comfort. Rumors faded. Work regained structure. Then the announcement came. John had been promoted. Senior leadership praised his performance. An international opportunity followed. Japan. Ella read the email without expression. She felt relief and closure. They spoke only once more. Brief, professional, honest. I hope you find what you're looking for, John said. So do you, Ella replied. There was no bitterness left, only understanding. And goodbye. That night, Ella stood in her home again, not as a woman defined by desire or regret, but by choice. She had faced herself and survived. Some lessons came late, but they still mattered. Life settled into a rhythm Ella hadn't known in months. Mornings were quieter, but not empty. The house carried warmth instead of tension. Alex returned to his old routines, but now included her presence. Dinner conversations were slow, deliberate. Sincere. Her daughters noticed the change and smiled. More often. It felt like rebuilding from the inside out. Ella spent evenings reflecting. Instead of running. No longer haunted by impulsive desire. No longer measuring herself against what could have been. John's departure to Japan became a symbol, rather than a wound. She realized that closure didn't erase memory. It allowed her to carry it without pain. She carried lessons, not regrets. Work continued, orderly as always. John thrived in his new position. Management praised his intelligence, drive, and calm decisiveness. Occasionally, she thought of him and allowed herself a small smile. No longing, no temptation, just acknowledgement of someone who had been a catalyst. She wished him success sincerely. Her marriage found equilibrium again. Alex, patient and attentive, slowly regained her trust. Their nights became gentle, comfortable, and real. The distance between them shrank as understanding grew. They learned to listen, to forgive, to appreciate the ordinary. Love returned quietly, without urgency or drama. It felt stronger than it had in years. The daughters grew even closer to both parents. Family dinners became frequent, laughter filling the house. Ella allowed herself to enjoy the simple moments. A shared cup of tea, a quiet evening on the balcony. The mundane had never felt this valuable. She realized happiness was built in small, consistent choices. John sent a short email once, months later. Thank you for everything. Take care. Ella read it, smiled, and deleted it. No longing followed, only peace. The chapter was complete. Life had moved forward clean, honest, and balanced. Ella understood her own strength at last. She had faced desire, guilt, fear, and loss. She had made mistakes. She had been human, and she had returned to herself. That was enough. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Ella stood by the balcony, looking at the horizon. Her heart was calm, her mind clear. She breathed in the warm, fading light. Ah! Life reclaimed, a family healed, a future open. And in that quiet she smiled. Finally, truly she smiled.